you guys Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the September 7th, 2021 Post Falls City Council meeting. Shannon, please note that all council members are present. We do have 3 public hearings tonight, and if anybody wishes to speak at the public hearing, there's forms on the dais in the back. Please fill them out and turn those in to our clerk, Shannon. And the first item is the swearing in of our new police chief, formerly Captain, now soon-to-be Chief Greg McLean. And I think we're going to have you step up, and I think we've got Shannon doing the honors. And I would like to, before you start, I would like to recognize the fact that Greg's parents, Tim and Sharon, are here, his girlfriend, Treese, and her parents, Don and Pam. So thank you, and everyone else who showed up for this, thank you very much. Oh, good. I hope you pin him, because I would hurt him if I did.
You ready? Is this working? Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and the Constitution of the State of Idaho,
and faithfully discharge all of the duties of police chief to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and faithfully discharge all the duties of the Chief of Police to the best of my ability. So help me God. You did it.
Right?
Thank you.
That's it.
Do you have is there a pinning or anything, or has that already been?
He's already been pinned.
It's already been pinned. Well, thank you. And just for the record, if you call and ask me to have coffee, I'm going to say no. There's a story behind that. I will say no. Oh, yeah.
I watch all of the meetings and Panhandle Hill several months.
All right, I think we got it. Congratulations again, Greg. Appreciate your time and service to the city.
I want to know where they're going to
I think
celebrate.
we can all go home now. Everyone's leaving.
I agree with Carrie. Where's the celebration?
Bye, folks. Thank you.
So we swear him in as chief, and he delegates and leaves. I love it.
I think he's coming back in. He just went out to shake hands, but you never know.
We do have a proclamation tonight. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore I, Ronald G. Jacobson, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Dated the 7th of September, 2021. And we do have one announcement. During the council meeting last month, concerns about the railroad crossing of Chase Road were brought to our attention. And the city has been working with Union Pacific Railroad regarding the specific crossing, and it is scheduled to receive safety improvements on September 14th. And I'm going to tell you, from having past experience dealing with the railroad, that is a quick turnaround time. typically, we have worked with the railroad on issues that have taken several years to get accomplished. So this was, we appreciate the citizen bringing this to our attention, and want everybody to know that staff jumped on that immediately. I know our city administrator provided weekly updates, and to get something done in a month's time with the railroad was pretty amazing. So thanks to staff who worked that out. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none tonight, sir.
Are there any declarations of conflict, ex parte contacts, and site visits? Seeing none, would you please present the consent calendar?
Item A is minutes from the August 17th, 2021 City Council meeting. Item B is payables, August 10th through August 30th, 2021. Item C is Brennan Annexation, reasoned decision. Item D is Boyd Annexation, reasoned decision. Item E is Green Meadows Zone Change, reasoned decision. Item F is Kulka and Kelly Annexation denial. Item G is Frontage Improvement Waiver Request for 120 West 21st Avenue. Item H is Temporary Construction Easement for the Ponderosa Lift Station Replacement Project. Item I is Tullamore 9th Edition Subdivision Plat Application. Item J is Acceptance of Grants of Right-of-Way and Easements for Hope Avenue and Bogey Drive. Item K is Spokane Street and Prairie Avenue Project Consultant Professional Services Agreement Authorization for additional services for JUB engineers. And item L is North Place Zone Change, reasoned decision.
Any questions on the consent calendar? Al, go ahead.
I had some questions, and I'm hoping that either Rob or Bill can do a little more explanation on item K, the professional services agreement authorization.
And I know Rob spoke
Rob's
to me
coming up.
earlier. There he comes.
Councilman Wolf, you want just a general, more in-depth overview, or?
I found it to be a little bit surprising that something with this big a price tag was on the consent calendar to begin with, so if you could just kind of verbalize what the,
I'm going to verbalize, but I'm also going to provide a couple of PowerPoint slides, and the reason for that is it's a little bit complex, and when you have to try to put it into 2 pages on a consent calendar item for you, that's a little bit long-winded too. So last year, City Council approved for the design of the Prairie and Spokane Street improvements, which are shown here, which was for improvements of Spokane Street from Grange Avenue up to Prairie, and to widen Prairie Avenue basically from Chase Road to Spokane Street to a principal arterial roadway. It also included looking at the intersection for the design of either a roundabout or a traffic signal. Presently, we're moving forward with the design of a multi-lane roundabout at that location. The reason for the request of additional funding was back in 2017, the City Council approved and the city moved forward with the design of improvements to Poline Avenue moved forward with design of improvements to Spokane Street from Poline Avenue to Grange Avenue, which is the southern end of what we're currently building. We thought that it would make sense now that we've updated our impact fee list to combine the 2 projects together. So this is a portion of that increase. About half of it is to include combining the design from Spokane Street into the design for the Prairie Spokane, and to also include the oversight and of construction management of the 2 together. Also in this, while we were in the design phase, we were taking a look at our master plan for water reclamation, and there was an area identified for a 5-year growth area. Our project is shown in the solid blue with the little blue circle. And in order to accommodate that growth for water reclamation, our master plan showed what you see here as a black line going through the middle of a subdivision. We hired Keller and Associates in the late winter of 2020 to take a look at alternatives as to how to get sewer around this area in a better route. What we didn't want to do was to put in a multi-million-dollar road improvement and then in 5 years later come in and have to dig up the entire road because we're looking at sewer depths of around 25, 30 feet deep. You'd lose the entire roadway. Falling into this also was, if we were to route the sewer through the neighborhood, we were running a similar problem that we would probably lose the roadway from curb to curb or possibly from sidewalk to sidewalk, which would require replacement of water, other utilities, and a significant inconvenience to the general public. From that study, we came up with a proposed alignment which would run the sanitary sewer down Prairie Avenue towards Chase. We would end it at the project limits. Within this, you're looking at additional design and then construction management for the sanitary sewer of $44,600. So that's about the other half. Does that give you a really quick summary of what we're doing and why we have those additional costs? We're incorporating additional sewer work so we don't have to tear out what we're looking at building in the near future. And then we're combining two projects together to increase the scope of the whole project.
Yeah, that helps. I guess my other question was why this was embedded in the consent calendar, which is usually just, I don't know, not rubber stamp stuff, but boilerplate stuff.
Being an addition, we kind of looked at it as we've already had the project designed on the south end, tying in the two together. And then for the sanitary sewer, water reclamation was comfortable with the fees that we saw on this, and we saw it as just a necessary addition onto it. We thought that the consent calendar was the best route to go. I can take from this that in the future, something with this type of budget, that you'd prefer to see something with more of a new business item.
I would too.
Yeah, 90 grand's a lot of money. I like to, and you had a great presentation already for us, so thank you.
You're welcome. It was complex, so I wanted to be ready for you.
You are ready.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Alan, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Bills? Entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion seconds, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Porters,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is public hearings. The first item tonight is fiscal year 2022 foregone tax. Shelley, I guess you're presenting.
I am
will open
presenting
the
this tonight.
Public hearing.
So the legislative statutes behind foregone tax require us to hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution to roll the foregone amount if we don't choose to take the 3% within the property tax budget. And to do that, again, we have to hold a public hearing, take any public comment, and then that amount, which is just a foregone tax authority, it's just authority only. It's not taxing anyone or doing anything with those funds, rolls over into our foregone amount. And so this resolution that's being presented tonight would allow us to do that. Prior to 3 years ago, this just automatically happened, and then they took legislative action to require us to hold a public hearing and adopt the resolution. To use foregone tax, you can increase your budget by 1%. Again, you would hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution. And if you're doing a capital project, you could take 3% at one time in your budget. So it's capped out that you could not take any more than 1% property tax amount of your foregone for operating costs, and you can take no more than 3% at once if you were doing a capital project, which on the capital project, you would have to have a timeline on how long you could use it, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. And again, that would be held at a public hearing, and a ordinance would be adopted with that one when you actually use foregone tax. I can take any questions.
Questions for Shelley? No, thank you.
Shelley, what is our foregone tax balance this year?
See, I knew you were going to ask that, and Jason did not provide that to me.
380,021.
That's the amount
This
we're
year.
rolling over,
Yeah,
but I
rolling over.
I believe our total in the foregone is around 2 million, and I can get that number for you. I don't have it with me tonight.
Okay.
Happens, the foregone balance can increase when you don't take a increase in the levy rate, so.
Right, so we haven't taken an increase in property tax with the exception of 1 year in 13 years, so all 12 of those years have rolled over into the foregone balance.
Yeah. So that's possible money we could have took, but we haven't
Correct.
taken it, so.
Yeah, that's not money sitting somewhere.
No, it's just authority is all.
Not
Yeah.
take that amount of money in taxes.
Shannon, anyone wishing to testify?
We have none.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. Council, how would you like to act?
I would move to approve
Excuse me one
the-
second, Linda. I'm
Oh.
sorry. Warren, do we need something?
Just going to look really quick. I think
sorry.
we have a resolution coming up
Yes.
later on the
We
agenda.
do, so
that
we'll do it at the resolution time? Thanks, Linda. Sorry about that. I jumped the gun. Next item up is a Tullamore 9th zone change. With that, I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor Jacobson, Council President Wilhelm, and other members of the City Council. John Manley, Planning Manager here with the City of Post Falls, presenting the Tullamore 9th zone change, case file RZNE 5, 2021. Applicant is Drew Dittman of Lake City Engineering, and they're representing the ownership group of Copper Basin Construction Incorporated. The request is to rezone approximately 47 acres from the CCS zoning district to the requested CCM, the Community Commercial Mixed Zoning District. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this on June 8th of this year. They did recommend the CCM move forward. With that, there is a proposal to restrict multifamily on 3 identified lots of approximately 14 acres within that development agreement. You can kind of see it here within that development. What you see in yellow is the area with the restricted multifamily location at that site location. The 47 acres is what you see here in the red hatched line. That would be the rezone area. And I'll go into further details on that down on some future slides. So the current land use for this is undeveloped lands near Highway 41. Ross Point Water would service the water with the City of Post Falls servicing sewer. Here's the bounds there, located just west of Highway 41 and south of Prairie a little bit. So when you look at a zone change criteria, there's 6 review criteria. You're looking at, are the amendments to the zoning map in accordance with the future land use map? And the amendments to the zoning maps in accordance with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan? Also looking at traffic patterns, street classifications, existing development, future land uses, and community plans of the area, and if there's any known geographic or natural features that would be inhibiting of any such proposal. So first, looking at the future land use map, this is designated as business commercial, which supports a wide array of opportunities within that designation. You can see here the zoning of the area. Here's 41. Typically, how 41 is set up is you have both the east and west side set up with a swath of commercial, the community commercial services. And then behind it, you have R1 or low density type designations just off to the east. But here it's the R1, single family residential. And this is why in our zoning map and zoning districts, you see multifamily often being applied for with a special use permit, because the method at which was approached here was, we don't know how things are going to evolve east and west of 41. We know that along 41, more than likely you'd end up with some commercial uses taking advantage of the traffic counts on 41. And then it would transition as you move to the west and the east away from 41 to some medium and higher densities to help buffer the impacts to that area of single family to the east and to the west. I would note that looking at this, that both the CCS and the CCM are both implementing zoning districts within the future land use map, that zoning district, that land use designation of business commercial. So the purpose of the business commercial is to provide a wide variety of general services, retail, professional office, light industrial, some manufacturing, mixed uses. Also, you're looking at promoting a mixture of moderate to high density housing within walking distance of city center, neighborhood centers, corridor commercials, as well as civic uses. For the use and character, you're supporting a mixture of housing types at moderate densities, at least 8 dwelling units per acre. You're looking at the implementing zoning districts of CCS and CCM there. I highlighted them there. I underlined what currently is and bolded what they're proposing. There was some concern that has been brought up about some of the design constraints of the CCM and how it differs from the CCS. So Bounded here in the perimeters is what's all currently CCS. What is different about the CCM, besides having a development agreement, which allows you to restrict multifamily in areas which the CCS doesn't. Conceivably as CCS, this could incrementally receive special use permit requests and could potentially over time be whittled away to where more than a third of this is designated as multifamily down the road, because the comp plan we have supports a lot of those policies as well. It encourages more of your intense commercial along your corridor, but doesn't prohibit approvals of potential multifamily along 41. You can see here the maximum height of 105 feet that's been brought up in the CCM. Conceivably, there's a point of diminishing returns for someone to go higher than 3 stories. Once you get above 3 stories, oftentimes your building code requirements increase. You got elevators that gets imposed in projects. Plus, then you also got parking constrained on sites. So market feasibility, once you go higher, you look to the south, you have a multifamily project abutting it. If those were all 6 stories, it would be impossible to provide parking and meet that site design. You would end up having to reduce the number of structures and increase your parking. So based on the market, it's highly plausible the highest you would see on this would be 3 stories with a similar parking, just due to the cost of construction. And even though we have higher rents, I don't believe it justifies going high just for solely multifamily uses. Some of the differences between the CCS and CCM. The CCM is more commercial mix, so it's trying to encourage commercial-oriented development with multifamily housing in a commercial type walkable environment. The CCS is more of a hybrid between industrial and commercial, where you can do some commercial through special use permits, some industrial through special use permit, but we're encouraging commercial. So these here would not be permitted in the CCM, but would be permitted potentially through a special use permit in the existing zone CCS. Not all these are uses you would want to see on a corridor such as 41, where it's highly visible and you have neighborhoods in close proximity. So you can see here you got heavy equipment repair, a plywood manufacturer. Odds are none of the sites would be large enough. Paving and roofing materials manufacturer, plastics manufacturer, salvage yard, or an automotive impound yard. So all those are potential asks, so to speak, for a CCS, which are not potential with the CCM. I'm going to go back to, so really what you're looking at is the differences is the potentiality in the CCS for this corridor through this, or what's being proposed, and which staff would consider is more than likely more in line with the goals and policies of the comp plan, being that you are getting that transitional density westerly to the single family. You do have compatible uses in the area with apartments to the south and higher density single family abutting it, and you preserve the integrity of the commercial corridor with more commercial uses abutting a commercial corridor rather than having quasi-industrial uses along that corridor. In addition to that, you do have the proposal of rooftops located near places of work. They also are close to civic spaces, and there's also a school planned to the north here, which affords the opportunity to have rooftops in proximity of that school, as well as there's some other schools to the west that can use Hope as an east-west, or that Bogey as an east-west connecting corridor to those schools. Looking at the focus area, so the comp plan is set up to where we have future land use designations, and then we have sections that offer a little bit more of a gleaning refinement of what we would see in those areas. So you see here focus provisions for multifamily, commercial, and tech uses near higher classified roadways. So you do have higher, this would be true with 41 running north-south in a close proximity. And preserving the commercial along the arterials of 41 would also meet the next one. Looking at the goals and policies, grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health. In this case, a lot of it, you have meeting the desire to reduce the dependency on vehicular traffic. You do have a lot of independence and walkability in that. You could create more of a work-live environment, which a lot of our goals and policies point to. Plan for and establish the quantities of land uses for Post Falls, supporting community needs. Post Falls, right now, we're in need of all categories, whether it's a single-family home, medium density, of different varieties, or multifamily. We have low vacancy rates in all sectors. Support land use planners that enhance communities' level of service. This is done through impact fees. So with multifamily, they do pay a portion to the park impact fees, street impact fees, as well as streets. The commercial element that's along 41 would pay, they wouldn't pay the park portion though. But that's no different than most commercial, all commercial development in Post Falls. Here's you see that long-term fiscal health is that walkability, reduced reliance on vehicles. In time, I would probably project you will see transit in this corridor due to the increase of housing along it. Enhanced residential quality of life. This is subjective. Odds are if you live on 5 acres or more and 10 acres, this isn't an area that you see as a enhanced quality of life. If you're in the general workforce and you may have 2 incomes and you're in an apartment, this might be a great quality of life because you can, without traveling anywhere, go to the events on Tullamore Park. You can go and get other services in close proximity to your house. So that is a bit subjective from where you're from. Promote compatible, well-designed environment. I kind of went over that. You do have apartments to the south, other high-density, single-family, and abutting this, and it does transition to the west. So I would see this as compatible with that surrounding environment, as well as compatible with the future commercial that would be to the east of it along 41. It is cited in the staff report, the compatibility with those master plans and facility plans. Policy 2 is much the same. I've kind of gone over most of this. You did see in the staff report, though, that there wasn't known issues with future traffic patterns of this area, that it is complementary and consistent with the Highway 41 corridor plan. Looking at the other criteria for zone change, we're looking at commercial and high density residential zoning is typically assigned on streets with higher road classifications. I went over that. I would consider this consistent with that review criteria. Looking at neighborhood commercial and lower density, I would be further away, and I wouldn't say that 41 is going to be a low intense. It's going to be a high intense urban activity corridor. So those zoning designations would not necessarily be consistent with that criteria. The next one is industrial. They're not asking for that, so it's really not applicable. Here's the agencies that were routed. Of that, the police department comment is neutral. DEQ, as usual, they have more construction-related concerns, dust mitigation, and therefore, and other comments of that regards. Post Falls Highway District, they had no comments. Once again, here's the 3 review criteria in the site. The 6 review criteria in the site in question. Any questions for me at this point?
Couple questions, John. Under the CCM, there's a development agreement. Are we going to see that tonight, or is that something that's going to
I believe it's
come
attached
back
to
us?
draft version should have been attached with this in the exhibit.
Okay.
It's attached with the packet.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to bring up that the CCM does require 7% open space. This site is within the Tullamore planning area. The site itself has, with this area included, has already created 10% open space for our PUD requirements. So just wanted to make it transparent that this being a CCM And they're also, in addition to that, they're proposing about 4% to the west of this. So they more or less have met the 7% if it was approved through previous developments and previous phases of the Tullamore development area.
My question on that development agreement is, it stays with the property, correct? So if for some reason they sold this chunk of land, the new buyer still has to conform to the development agreement. They can't.
Correct.
That's correct. So we record this agreement. It runs with the land. It's a binding covenant on development of the property. To change that agreement requires a public hearing.
Okay.
And it is attached in your packet at Exhibit S7.
Okay. Well, I was trying to get to the fact that it sticks with the land. I guess that's one of my concerns or one of my feelings about this whole thing. The other question about, would you go over the special use process, the special use permit process? Because as it stands right now, as CCS, somebody would have to come back to us and request a special use permit to put multifamily on that property, correct?
Yeah, any area that you see denoted in red here, that's CCS, they would have to request another public hearing. That public hearing goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they review that through the review criteria for a special use permit. But yeah, we do notify it, and people do get notified, but yeah.
But I guess the thing of it is the difference is that under the CCM, we know how that 47 acres is going to be developed now.
Yeah, you're going to get a binding development agreement that will come before City Council.
Right.
Which is different than the special use permit, which an area could slowly evolve through time through a series of public hearings with a special use permit.
That was my point. Because if we leave it like it is, and then it can evolve over time, one little chunk at a time, making a case for a special use permit. Whereas we adopt this today, we're pretty much set in stone as to what that'll develop like.
True.
Correct? Okay.
That it?
Just to verify too, if I remember right, there was something in the development agreement that the developer agreed to not pull any permits for housing in this project until the Highway 41 project is completed. Is that correct?
I believe that to be the case, but I don't have every condition memorized, but that was that discussion.
Is everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've read that in
I
the
thought
minutes.
that's what I read, so.
Agree to that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good now.
Steve?
I got just a question on the open space, John. So there's already some open space that has been set aside, and then this would provide another 7%?
No, they're going to do 4 with this, but
Okay.
they've coordinated with parks on the regional park, and they've also created the Tullamore Park as part of the Tullamore PUD, and there's 10% of that. So they went above and beyond with this area included at 10%. So by default, this area included meets 10%, and so the 4% with this area would be above and beyond what has already been dedicated for the Tullamore planning area.
Okay, so instead of 7% for this actual zone change, it's 4%, because they're getting a credit for what they've already done.
I believe I'm coordinating with Warren on how to word.
So I was a little confused on that.
So when this property was initially developed, it was part of the PUD, which required 10%. So 10% of the entire larger PUD area was set aside as open space. This subset of that larger area is now being rezoned. So it's already met the requirement for open space in this area, but they're still providing, as part of this development, an additional 4%, as I understand it.
Okay.
And then there's, on top of that, as you do the multifamily, there's also open space requirements with multifamily development. So we couldn't give you, I don't think, a total max of what that's going to look like, but there will be more open space.
Okay, so the developer will work with staff to identify the exact locations of the open space then?
Yeah,
That
for
was
the
the plan.
multifamily site itself, I think we already know about where that 4% corridor is going to go. That was on, I can go to that slide here. So there is a tract of land being created to the west right along this swath. And that tract's going to have a connecting trail that will enhance this area as well. It'll allow these neighborhoods to the north to use that trail and connects to the Tullamore Park. So that corridor is 4%, an additional 4%
Okay.
of
So
this
it's-
site.
So more, it's a connectivity from the neighborhoods to the different parks and the trails and arterials.
And then with the multifamily, they'll have to do 150 square feet for each one-bedroom unit and 300 square feet for each two-bedroom unit, and then they'll work with staff on where that's located on the site. Typically, we try to locate those that will benefit the site, but at the same time offer system improvements as well.
So basically, with this zone change, we'd be getting amenities with this zone change that we wouldn't with the current existing zoning.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because with the multifamily, that's a standard.
That's anyway.
All multifamily projects have to meet that open space. Odds are that north-south corridor would have been where that's at, no matter what. I think the applicant can talk on the reasons for that, but I think there's some fill in that area and some other stuff that is a good location for creating that open space corridor.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
John, in the planning and zoning meeting staff report, or minutes, it said that the multifamily was going to be capped at 250 units and be on lot 2, 3, and 4. And out of the 46 acres, only 14 acres would be multifamily and the rest of the 32 acres would not. Was I reading that correctly?
That's in the minutes, that's what it is, and so, yeah, that would be the cap that we would have to, when we bring back the development agreement for signatures, would need to meet.
That would be in this then, at that time?
It would need to be consistent with that.
Okay, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Joe?
I don't know if it's a question for you or for Warren, but by what criteria can a special use permit be denied?
You make me have to look up the city code. There's a half a dozen approval criteria. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what those criteria are. John might be able to. They're similar criteria to what you're looking at tonight in some ways.
Yeah.
They're often difficult to deny in a lot of cases, because you're looking, is it consistent with the comp plan? Is it consistent with the goals and policies? Can you service it? Is there issues with the transportation plan? Oftentimes, proposals come forward and they meet all the review criteria set forth with a special use permit. And if they don't meet the review criteria, a lot of times we prevent them to even come before a body, because there's no point in moving something forward if it's against one of the criteria to begin with.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, John. Applicant wish to speak?
While he's coming up, I'm glancing at the agreement. I don't see a restriction on timing of building permits in here. It's possible we have that in other agreements. I don't see it here.
Yeah, there was something.
It was in the minutes.
And it could be, I'm just missing it. I'm trying to glance through it, trying to find it, but I wanted to highlight that as the applicant came up, because they know it better than I do. I've looked at a number of these, and
Okay.
so I don't remember which one is specific to which development, so.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, 126 East Poplar Avenue in the city of Coeur d'Alene. For the record, representing Copper Basin Construction tonight for the Tullamore 9th zone change. So this zone change kind of goes hand in hand with the Tullamore 9th final plat, which was on the consent calendar tonight that you guys approved earlier. I'll show a picture of that here in a minute. John went through the criteria here. I am not. So John kind of went through all of the issues. Does it meet zoning? Does it meet the comp plan? I'm going to actually try to give you the why we're here to do it, because it is kind of a little weird, commercial to commercial. Again, almost 47 acres. It is basically the remainder of the Tullamore project that's left to be developed out there. This one shows it a little better. So you can see the underlying lots there that were part of the Tullamore 9th final plat that you guys did approve tonight. Just for reference, this is the extension of Bogey Drive here. So you've got Hope here, Kildare here. This site is the new Elevate School that we hope to break ground on in the next 30 days or so. Just for reference, this would be Charleville, the main north-south street that runs through the Tullamore project. So we've got the cottage product that we built here. To kind of jump into it, and Councilor Wolf kind of hit the nail on the head. The reason the main reason we want to do it is obviously Highway 41 is under construction. It's coming close to completion, hopefully next spring. We want to put these lots on the market and market them as commercial lots, but also limit where and how much multifamily can go in. Because if we go out there and advertise commercial lots, everybody's going to buy them up and you're going to see a handful of special use permits. It happens a lot. You guys know that. We as the developers kind of want to control that. The way to control it is through the development agreement. It does get recorded against the property. It runs with the land. We sell a piece of property to somebody. We can say, here's the development agreement. It outlines what can and cannot be done on that property. Can't be changed unless they come back in front of you guys and try to amend that. So we are in the CCM zone. It does allow up to 50% multifamily, which would be about 23.5 acres. We're only proposing 14.5 acres, and that would be this area right here that you can see dashed in. So it would be basically everything to the west of Bogey and to the south of the new Elevate school that's going in. The open space that is being dedicated was on that final plat. It's this tract here. The reason we did that, for a variety of reasons actually, is you have some residential up here. You've got the new school going in obviously here, and you've got the main Tullamore Park here. So it does provide that north-south connectivity from the school, from the residents to the north down to the park and vice versa. And it actually fit well between the cottage product that we developed a few years ago and what would be any proposed multifamily. So it seems to fit right in that corridor. If I can touch on a couple of the questions, we did in the planning and zoning meeting say we'd be willing to put the condition of no permits on the multifamily until Highway 41's done. That did not make it into the draft development agreement, but we can work with Lauren and staff to make sure that that does get in there. We're okay with that. We also agreed to limit it to the 14.5 acres and 250 units. Again, that didn't make it into the draft, but we can work with staff to make sure that does get in there. I think that was everything I wanted to say. So if there's questions, I'll be happy to
Any questions of Mr.
answer
Goodman?
them.
See none.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Shannon, public wishing to speak.
We have none.
No rebuttal at this point?
Unless there's further questions.
Close the public hearing. And we will need a motion on this one. Any further discussion on this first?
I'll start. I think this is a good example of why we created, I shouldn't say we, staff created CCM. It gives the city, the staff, and the council a lot more control over what's going to end up on that 47 acres. I do not like looking forward to those special use permit requests coming back when somebody buys a piece of CCS, because as Joe questioned, they are very difficult. There's strict criteria that if it doesn't meet certain things, we have a really hard time denying those. I'd much rather see this developed under that development agreement. I like the fact that there's not going to be any permits, or I would put that in the motion that there will be no permits pulled on the multifamily until Highway 41's complete. I also like the fact that we're limiting it to the 14 acres. I think when it's all said and done, we'll have a better product on that 47 acres than if we leave it as the CCS. So I would be in favor of this zone change.
Joe?
And not to echo too much what Alan just said, but it's a tough one because, as everybody knows, we're growing way fast, and there's no faster way to kill a small town feel than high density. The part that concerned me on this, which is why I wanted to get clarification about my recollection of how special use permits goes, is if this remains CCS, we've run into this before, there is that, I guess I called it a loophole when we ran into it last time, but if they apply for a special use permit for multifamily, then essentially there's nothing we can do about it. We just kind of have to nod our heads, he signs off on it, and away they go. So if we leave it CCS, we don't know how it's going to develop out. It could end up being all commercial. It will likely end up being some multifamily, and it could theoretically be all multifamily. And there would be literally nothing we could do about it so long as it meets the 6 criteria. So, as much as I hate to raise my hand and say, yeah, let's put more density in Post Falls, especially along the Highway 41 corridor, this at least gives us surety that only 14.5 acres ends up being multifamily as opposed to the total 47.
Well, actually, under CCS, it's only 50%, so it could be
Okay, so it could
20,
be,
23 and a half.
could be 25, yeah, 20, right, 24%, so 24 acres. So I think this is probably a good thing even from a density standpoint.
I'll make a motion.
Let me, I just add one more comment, and that would be that when you go into a development like this, and you have the development agreement, and as Joe and Al both said, you know what's going in. We won't be faced with the people who justifiably come forth and say, we bought our house not knowing what that was going to be. Now we know. Now the development agreement specifies what is going in there. And there could still be surprises, but there shouldn't be. So I think this eliminates that possibility as well. So, again, I agree. I'm not a fan of the high density, but I like the fact that it's being limited. I like the fact that you're willing to wait on the drawing or pulling permits until 41's improved. So I would also be supportive if it came to you, but I don't think it will. Steve?
Yeah, and I think the developer, they've had the forethought of, with the improvements to 41 and the access to commercial is going to be a lot easier with the redevelopment, that to be able to limit that to commercial and business uses instead of apartments is a benefit to everybody in the city. And also, as people know, I like the connectivity between the school and the park. It keeps the kids on the back side of 41 and gives them a safe walking route from both the multifamily, the housing neighborhood on to the west, and to be able to go to some of the businesses along there. I think it's a good thought there to have the safe walking routes and to get those kids back and forth safely. So I support that.
Linda, do you want to float a motion?
Sure. I would move to approve the Tullamore 9th zone change, file number RZNE-0005-2021. I would include in the development agreement that 14.5 acres will be limited to multifamily, that no multifamily building permits will be pulled until Highway 41 is complete, and that the units of multifamily will be built on lots 2, 3, and 4, and no more than 250 units.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Shannon, please take the roll.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Malloy.
A somewhat lackluster aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I'd like to add, too, now the public hearing's done, I had the opportunity to participate in the ceremonial groundbreaking for the new Elevates Academy. And I think that's going to be a tremendous asset to this community. It targets the kids who maybe aren't geared for regular school, whose grade point average is low, whose absenteeism is high, and it's a great opportunity to provide them education, help them learn a trade, differing a little bit from K-Tech, which is a wonderful program, but this particular school gears itself towards those kids who might get lost in the shuffle. And I mention that because, Mr. White, thank you for the donation of the land to help make that school a possibility. Next up is the Gondo Annexation. Open the public hearing.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Jacobson, City Council members. Laura Jones, Associate Planner with the City of Post Falls, introducing the Gondo zone change, or excuse me, Gondo annexation. The property owners are Edward and Sarah Gondo, Sarah being the applicant, and she is also the business owner of Barn 31, which is currently located on Saltese and Greens Ferry. If the annexation is approved, she is going to be relocating her business to the subject property. The requested action tonight is to review the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation for the zoning designation of community commercial services on 4.6 acres and approve the annexation request into the City of Post Falls. The site is located on the southwest corner of Prairie and Greens Ferry, as indicated here. The site is currently built out with the Gondo's single-family residence and their accessory structures. It is located over the Rathrum Prairie and above the Rathrum Prairie Aquifer. Ross Point Water District is the water provider, and the City of Post Falls will be providing sanitary sewer. Looking at the adjacent zoning, to the north and the south are similar large single-family acre lots within Kootenai County's jurisdiction. To the east is a large undeveloped lot also within Kootenai County. And then to the west is the North Place development, which was recently approved for a zone change to RM, or residential mixed. And that allows for primarily residential uses, but up to 10% commercial within that development. We're going to go through the 6 zone change review criteria that the Planning and Zoning Commission based their recommendation on. The first being that amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the future land use map. The future land use designation here is transitional, and it is located within a commercial activities node. Looking at the future land use map, the bluish color is the transitional zone. The light yellow is low density residential. And then that red dash circle is the commercial activity node. So the transitional designation states that assigned zones should be compatible with adjacent zones and uses within the city and consistent with the guiding principles within the associated focus area. And the comprehensive plan calls the focus area out as the Central Prairie focus area, and which the key policies address that Prairie Avenue's role as a major east-west connecting corridor may spur interest in commercial use development. Additionally, it says that commercial development should be focused along Prairie Avenue and near identified commercial nodes. The second review criteria is that it be consistent with the goals and policies found within the comprehensive plan. We found 3 goals in the staff report that were relevant for the annexation. The first being Goal 1, to grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health. Goal 5, which is to keep Post Falls neighborhoods safe, vital, and attractive. And Goal 7, which is to plan for and establish types and quantities of land use in Post Falls, supporting community needs and the city's long-term sustainability. So in order to obtain these goals, we apply the comprehensive plan's policies, and I will go through those next. The first relevant policy was Policy 1, to support land use patterns that maintain or enhance community levels of service. And John touched on this in the last hearing, that this is done by the use of impact fees at the time of building permit issuance. We also look at how it will foster the long-term fiscal health of the community, and this new annexation with the commercial base will add tax base to the city. And we're going to also look at maintaining and enhancing residential quality of life. Based on what the applicant is proposing, it would be an expansion of the current business, providing more jobs for locals, hopefully, and they would have more of that live, work, play ability and potentially more jobs for the community. Also to promote compatible, well-designed development. As I mentioned earlier, most of the surrounding properties are those large 5-acre lot, single-family residence. The business is proposed for agro-tourism, which will help preserve the open space on the prairie and also kind of play off the historic agricultural use of the site. Policy 2 is to apply a revised zoning designation with careful consideration of factors including the future land use map and compatibility with surrounding land uses. We've already discussed both of those. Infrastructure and service plans. The applicant will be responsible for bringing sanitary sewer to and through the site. Currently, sanitary sewer is located in Corinne Lane, which is about 330 feet to the south. So they will be putting in a new service line that extent from Corinne north to Prairie. And that has been considered in line with the city's the city's water reclamation master plan. And the Water Reclamation Department said they do have the capacity to serve it with that new service line. As earlier I mentioned, the Ross Point Water District will be providing the water service, and the applicant has provided a will serve letter from Ross Point. Going on to the streets, Prairie Avenue is a critical arterial corridor. Greens Ferry Road is a minor arterial, both of which can handle the proposed traffic influxes, and the zoning's in line with the city's transportation master plan. The plan does call out that by 2035, Prairie Avenue will be a 5-lane road with 10,000 vehicles per day, and Greens Ferry is expected to be a 3-lane arterial with 6,000 vehicles per day. And with this, with this annexation, the applicant will be required to dedicate rights-of-way along both Prairie and Greens Ferry. Policy 45 looks at decisions which will help guide annexations by considering things like infrastructure, rights-of-way, environmental and public service factors, timing and goals of policies of the comprehensive plan. Most of these, again, I've already touched on, or they will be coming up in the future slides here in the next 4 zone change review criteria, so I'm not going to go into them here. The 3rd zone change review criteria looks at the traffic patterns, the future land uses, community plans. Again, I've touched on most of those. It also looks at the geographic and natural features, which includes the Rathdrum Prairie and the aquifer, and neither of these would seem to present hazards or obstructions to developing the site. The 4th zone change review criteria is that commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with a higher road classification. Again, Prairie's a principal arterial, Greens Ferry's a minor arterial, and they are both in line with the city's transportation master plan for serving a commercial site. Limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential zoning is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from higher intensity urban activity. The proposed zoning request is surrounded predominantly by single-family homes within that commercial node and further away from the higher urban intensity areas, so that is all in line with this zone change review criteria. The last criteria involves industrial zoning, which is not applicable for the site. This is the list of agencies that were routed for review and were given the chance to comment. 5 agencies did respond. The Post Falls Police Department, Post Falls Highway District, and Kootenai County Fire and Rescue were all neutral. Panhandle Health District was in support of the annexation, and they said that the aquifer is best protected when wastewater is directed to municipal sewer. And then the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality had comments that will be applicable at time of construction. And with that, I can take questions.
Questions, Laura?
Question.
Go ahead, Al.
So we just talked about CCS. CCS can have multifamily with a special use permit.
Correct.
My concern is that a special use permit would be very difficult to decline at this particular location. It meets all the criteria because of the street classifications. Is that correct?
Correct. As John had alluded to in the previous hearing, it is hard to deny a special use permit if it does meet all that criteria. I think here, one of the zone change, the special use criteria is that it has to be compatible with the surrounding uses and zoning. So while the zoning would be compatible because it is in that commercial node, I don't know if it would be supported for high-density residential due to those 5-acre large lots around it. But that would be something for planning and zoning to discuss and make a decision on.
Okay. Is there any way to approve this as CCS with no residential?
Not that I'm aware of. I can let Warren elaborate, but right now the CCS allows for incidental residential use, which is currently, the applicant's intent is to keep her residential structures in her home on the property and develop the other portions of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that entirely. I think it's a great idea for that, but somebody could buy the property and,
They could. We don't have provisions for a development agreement with the straight Euclidean zones, this being one of those. So we don't really have a mechanism to do that. There's always the possibility that someone in the future could come in and ask for something to change. They can ask for a zone change, can ask for a special use permit, they can ask for a subdivision. All of those things are potential that they could come in and ask for. Frankly, you can come in and ask for an amendment to the comprehensive plan. So the state law anticipates all of those things are potentially in flux down the road. It's, so the most certainty that you can give folks is the fact that any of those items are going to require public hearings to approve, and they have a chance to come in and testify and weigh in on whether or not those criteria are met. That's the most certainty that we can ever give anyone, more or less.
okay, thank you.
Being that it's a commercial node, would that be something that in the future could be used to, say, deny a special use permit for multifamily?
That's why I stepped up, is the comprehensive plan does promote commercial activities along Prairie Avenue. It also, by having those commercial activity nodes, gives a path for denial. Doesn't necessarily guarantee a denial, but it does give a path towards a denial, as we do allude to the fact that we're encouraging commercial specifically at those locations. Which we don't, which is different from the other public hearing where I was in general talking about commercial.
Not to belabor the point, I'm glad John jumped up because it reminded me of something I wanted to mention. Trying to forecast and guess what type of record would be developed at a future public hearing, because as you're all aware, we have to make our decisions based on the record that's developed at the public hearing. We have no idea what that record would look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and so it's hard to look out into the future and say it would be granted or not, because we just don't know what the record, what the testimony would look like that might come in during that hearing process.
And additionally, I mean, the reason why the comp plan's set up the way it is you have more or less what the comp plan stating is along Prairie Avenue, because it's an arterial roadway. The most compatible uses adjacent to that are multifamily and commercial. It's the current format because of the impact that lighting pollution has, noise pollution has, and other negative aspects of major arterials, that those help buffer the built environment as they proceed either north or south of Prairie Avenue. So you're stuck in a quandary with Prairie Avenue, more than likely in the future, of asks being of commercial in nature and multifamily in nature.
George, you have another question?
Yeah, this one's almost, oh, not done.
No, I'm done.
This one's way less dramatic, but we inherit the stoplight if we pass this one too, right?
I'm sorry, say it again?
If this goes forward and we annex this property, we inherit the stoplight, correct?
Yeah, I believe the Highway District said that we would be taking responsibility for the stoplight on their comments.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't see it in the packet, although it may have been there, I just missed it, but what's the rough annual cost of maintaining a stoplight?
Mr. Paulus, do you care to jump in?
Okay, I'm gonna guess it's negligible, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I think it's new, too.
That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Does the applicant wish to speak? Name for the record, please, and we have a timer for you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Sarah Gondo, and my husband Ed and I are 9766 West Prairie Avenue. We're the applicants, and as she said, I do own Barn 31. I assume you probably read the staff report from Planning and Zoning, so I don't want to go into a ton of detail, but just kind of a recap of kind of where we started and where we're at. When we purchased the property 7 years ago, we had no business aspirations at all. I just wanted a pool. So We, a few years ago, decided to sell Christmas trees. That kind of grew into something else, and we wanted to take it further. We couldn't take it any further, as you know, on our county property. So we opened up our retail store in the old dugout building, and that's done really well. Just kind of a side note as that I'd like to mention, we have about 800 square feet of retail there, and that has grown 262% from year 1 to year 2, which tells you we need that in our community. There's just not enough gift store kinds of things here. So we've been very supportive of our community. We love Post Falls. We do everything we can to provide free activities for kids. We do free Santa pictures. We do free photo ops. And so being able to open up on our property would be amazing. We can really take it to the next level. Where we're at, we're pretty limited. So as we, if we are able to develop that 3 acres, it's kind of an agritourism business that would include a retail section, a bakery, drive-through coffee stand, a kind of a brunchery, and then currently our DIY workshops are basically paint workshops. We'd like to be able to offer more things. We're limited to where we're at. We'd like to do gardening classes and cooking classes, and we have a homeschool arts and crafts program where we really like to be able to offer other educational kinds of things and workshops, and pumpkin patch and a tree farm and a farmer's market and open space with picnic tables and yard games and those kinds of things. We think this is the perfect location for it. Kind of eases us into some commercial activity there, maintain some of the prairie. And you're right. I mean, we could get hit by a train next week and someone could sell their property out from underneath it. That's always a possibility, but that's absolutely not our intentions. My husband served 20 years in the Army. We've lived all over the place. I graduated from Post Falls. My kids all graduated from Post Falls. We love it here. We have no intentions of doing anything with that property other than to develop it as a kind of a community center and really be able to be an asset to our community. So,
thank you, Steve.
Yeah. I like your business plan and what you're doing. My question, my only concern would be, are you planning on, with your farmers markets, would you limit it to so many spaces, and are you planning on flea markets too, you know, basically? Or would it just be produce you'd be selling, or would you be bringing in antique dealers to do shows on weekends?
That would be pretty small, because I know our parking,
yeah, that was
3 acres seems like a lot until you start putting in trails and buildings and things. So when I say farmers market, I'm thinking smaller things, smaller sorts of vendor events. We currently do a little something in our parking lot once a month that's like 20. So
that's why I've been to your place and looked at that, and I've seen you've kept
it,
because you're limited by space of what you can do there.
Yep,
so
we are.
That would be my only concern, is the parking and getting people on and off Prairie if it becomes too big for the farmer.
Sure.
I wish you all the success in the world, but I do have some concerns with the open market part of it on that. But.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things that we'd obviously be limited by. And that might be something, that part of it might not pan out. We might just find that we don't have the parking for that, but.
To sustain that. Okay, thank you.
Well, I would just, I just have a couple comments. I would like to just congratulate you, Sarah, because I have been in your store down there and have seen the synergy that you've built around that and the classes that you give. And when you walk in that door, you can just kind of feel the hometown love. So I think this is a great idea. So I would just throw that out there. Thank you.
Hello, Sarah.
Yes.
And I've been to, when you had the store up on this property, before Barn 31 came to sell teas.
Right.
I guess I don't have a question. I just think that this is ideal since you live there. You know, this is not a developer coming in, this is the property owner who has skin in the game. Your home is there, your pool is there, and now you can cut your commute time, so I support your goals there.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to testify?
We have none.
I don't suppose you're going to rebut anything you just said then, right?
Oh, what was that?
You are not going to rebut anything?
No, I have
Okay,
nothing to
perfect.
rebut, I guess.
I always got to give you the opportunity. I'll close the public hearing. Council, how would you like to act?
I think while it's, of course, possible that anything could happen, it could end up as apartments 15 years from now, this is one I'm more than willing to roll the dice on because they've got a solid plan. They're homegrown folks, so I'm comfortable.
I'd make a motion if anybody.
Yeah.
Good.
I was just going to kind of echo the same thing. I am concerned whenever we do CCS, and maybe someday we'll have a CCS with no residential or something, but I think we've got to take a chance here, and I like their business plan. I like the fact that they live there, and maybe that'll spur that commercial node on that corner, so I'm willing to take that chance. And hopefully I'll be still sitting up here if somebody comes back with an SUP request at some point in time. So I can say no. Go ahead.
Okay, I would move that we approve the Gondo Annexation 0009-2021.
Second?
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Gondo, thank you for your service to our country. Next item up is new business, and it is the pickup truck order for fiscal year 2022.
I think
Are
we
we
skipped
jumping
the
ahead of the,
resolutions.
I'm sorry, I skipped the resolutions. Somehow my finger moved it down too far. Let's do resolutions first. How
Linda's
about
ready.
the first resolution on the foregone property tax?
Mr. Mayor, can I just real quickly, I was asked a question during the public hearing, and due to the magic of technology, I do have that answer. So the foregone balance is currently $2,860,807. With this addition, it'll be $3,240,828.
Good, thank you.
You're good.
Thank you, Shelley.
See, I did that just so Shelley could give that information. Okay, resolutions.
I'd move to approve the resolution fiscal year 2022 foregone property tax, the reserve amount of $380,021 in order to utilize it in a subsequent year.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item.
I'd move to approve the resolution fiscal year 2022 fee resolution.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item up is the 2022 Budget Ordinance.
I'd move to place the ordinance, the fiscal year 2022 budget, on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and appropriating a sum of $117,930,643 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the City of Post Falls for said fiscal year, authorizing a levy of a sufficient tax upon the taxable property and specifying the objects and purposes for which said appropriations are made.
Move to approve the ordinance fiscal year 2022 budget, to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Last item.
Move to approve the Tullamore Park addendum. Or do you need to talk, Dave?
If you guys are comfortable with it, I'm here for questions.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Further discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Aye. You didn't call my
Wilhelm.
name.
Sorry.
Motion passes. Thank you. I was
He forgets
counting
the
them. I thought
resolutions and forget
we're
the
one
vote.
short.
My finger in the way.
Now that I messed with your timing a little bit, now we're going to talk about new business. That's the pickup truck order for fiscal year 2022.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Ross Junkin, Public Works Manager. I'm here to touch base on the truck order we'd like to make for this coming year. I would like to put it in just action items earlier in the meeting. However, I thought it would be prudent to be after the adoption of the budget. So the issues that we've run into with truck or vehicle ordering during this pandemic has been very interesting. We typically have ordering windows that we can work with that stay fairly consistent. Since the end of 19, things have completely changed. Order windows have moved around on us, they've shrunk. We don't know when we're going to be able to order, what the prices are going to be. It's kind of out the window these days. This is in your packet. You should be able to see these numbers as well. We've been talking to and looking at the contracts for the state to see when the orders came out. They opened recently for Chevrolet. However, they told us that we can't guarantee when it's going to close. We can't give you a date. They basically have allotted so many microchips to be produced, and when that number is up, they're just going to cut it off. They're not even going to tell us. So we're concerned about that because that could push us out 1.5 years to procure vehicles in the future. So we've come to ask if we can get permission to order these trucks for the fiscal year 2022 ahead of the October 1st budget adoption. We wouldn't be paying anything until those trucks show up on our site, but to get them in production, get them in the queue so they can start the process of being built, which probably won't happen for another month anyway, even after we order. But that's the reason I'm here to touch base with you on that.
Well, with the microchip situation, I'll be surprised if you can get them all. I'll be surprised if they get back to normal production in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I'll let council speak, but my thought is, it's approved in the budget. If we have an opportunity to place an order and actually receive these trucks, I think it's a prudent thing to do. Council, any comment?
I would
I agree.
I live in this market working for a contract manufacturer, and this microchip shortage, along with shortages of everything else, glass, aluminum, plastic resins, yada, 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 it's a nightmare. So I think it would be a miracle if we actually got all the trucks. But if we don't place the order 3 months ago, we don't even have a chance.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Entertain a motion?
I would move to approve the truck purchases, pickup truck order for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Motion, seconds. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you. Thanks, Ross. Next item up is the citizens' issues, and this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding city-related issues that are not on the agenda. If you wish to speak, come forward and state your name for the record. Mr. Flowers.
Bob Flowers. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am here with kind of a request. It's probably nothing that you all haven't heard before, but it's getting really serious in my neighborhood. Dog complaints, barking dogs at all hours of the night. Now, I've been told by a couple different officers, both current and past, that the reason they really don't write these things up is the city prosecutor won't prosecute them. And so what they're basically doing is they're wasting their valuable time by even dealing with these barking dogs. But it is getting to the point in our neighborhood that I've actually heard the comment from several different people that they're going to deal with it themselves one way or another if the city won't. And what I'm here tonight to ask is that the city talk to the city prosecutor and ask him why he won't do anything. So these police officers aren't wasting their time responding to these calls. That's all I have.
Thank you. We can take that into consideration?
Sure. So quickly, we have a new city prosecutor in the last few months. I will talk with her specifically about this. I can tell you from experience that we make decisions on charging based on what the evidence is and whether or not you can prove it and whether or not it's something that's an efficient use of our resources. So I can't answer to any specific issue in the past or what's come up, but I'll certainly talk with Eileen and we'll have a discussion.
Perfect. And I understand what you're saying. We've got dogs, it's not constant, but when they yap, they yap. And especially if you've got a bunch of them, I know it can be a nuisance, so we'll follow up on it.
Can I ask a question on that? Is this something that, I mean, can we just write them a ticket?
So, yeah, it's more complicated than that. Ultimately, you end up in court, and then you have to figure out whether or not you can prove that ticket. It's in some ways no different than a traffic ticket. You can write the ticket, but ultimately people have the right to go have their day in court, and you have to look at whether or not you can actually make the charge stick.
Are you there? Did you hear it? Did you record it? Did you know?
Yeah, I didn't, yeah.
What about like recording it with a cell phone? Is that proof?
There's a reason I don't go to court. You were getting.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
I'm not a prosecutor, so we're starting to get beyond my expertise quickly, but I will talk with
I'm just
Eileen.
curious.
So we'll put this on next council meeting under staff reports after Warren's talked to Eileen, and then we can bring back additional information.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else?
Just for the record on that, I got barking dogs in my neighborhood too, so I'd like to, I was curious whether there was some
Well, not.
process, I guess.
They're owls.
I knew that Mr. Flowers did not live in Pioneer Ridge, and I'm wondering if the barking dogs, for me, we spend a lot of time out on our patio in the summer. It's far more annoying. I bet these dogs bark 12 months out of the year. I only hear them for about 3.
And I'm sure they're the dogs in Mr. Flowers' neighborhood. They're just that loud.
No, they're mine.
They're in Allen's neighborhood.
They're my neighborhood.
They're my neighborhood as well, so I would appreciate it. We'll have a staff report next meeting. Speaking of staff reports, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Administrative staff report, streets summer paving update.
Good evening again. I thought I'd come before you tonight to give you an update as we're wrapping up our paving operations throughout the city, both in-house crews and our contract work. So you probably noticed the Holston Good project is paved out. Our crews have been painting the roadway recently. In fact, they may have gotten to the long striping today. It's possible.
I didn't see it when I drove by, but they could have.
They had to wait for temperatures to come up. Whether or not they got there or not, I'm not sure. So that project came in actually quite a bit under our engineer's estimate. So that was good. We did have some complications with traffic control, which we somewhat expected, as it's a pretty busy area with a lot of businesses, in particular certain businesses that have a lot of trips during the day, like chiropractors and whatnot. But all in all, the major construction portion of it took about a week to do, a week and a half to get it done. It complicated things when we had TDS show up the same week that we had showed up. So they had a lot of time, but they chose that week for some reason. So, but we did get it done, and we were expecting to be within our budget there. Our chip seal contract just finished up. So we had almost 16 miles, single lane roads that were chip sealed that we placed this year. That's approximately 3% of our city streets that we're doing it, well, of this year at that rate will be roughly 3%. Looking at our entire city as a whole, it's going to take 28, almost 30 years to get back to that street. We try to shoot for 7 years. So our cycle's a little bit off. So we may have to look at that in the future to try and do more frequent chip seals as it may. And that contract was $240,000 as well. And that was a new contractor this year. They're doing okay. In-house paving, the list of streets is here. We put down just over 3,000 tons of asphalt, which is almost 4 miles of single-lane road. We did all of this with a very green crew. We've had a lot of turnover in our street crew, and we've had to train quite a lot of new employees on how to place asphalt. So there's been a lot of training the last year and a half on how to do that. But they did a great job, and towards the end of the season, they really got in the swing of things, and they were putting down a really good product. Along with that, we do have to put out ADA upgrades whenever we come across a wheelchair ramp. So there's 12 that were upgraded, and we contract that work out, as well as any curb work that is associated with that. Last year, we were able to purchase a new 12 or 10-wheel truck that went and it greatly helped our paving operations this year. And also the water truck that we purchased the previous year really came into play. And the guys were very appreciative about having 1,000 gallons of water accessible wherever they were at any given time for the rollers and any of the machines that needed it. The 3,000 tons of asphalt equates roughly to $215,000, and that also includes the contracts for the ADA ramps as well as grinding that has to take place prior to us getting in there to pave. Some of the issues that we ran into, we have a box scraper that's pretty old. I can't remember the exact date, but it's got to be 20 plus years old. It doesn't start very easily. It's getting on its last legs, and it's showing its age. So we did rent a box scraper for 2 months to get through the season. So we'll be looking at that, assessing that in the coming year or two to see what we need to do with it. Also, our paver, we put about $11,000 into our paver to get it up to speed so we could actually use it this year. It made it through the season pretty well, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that as it goes on, but that paver is getting old too as well. We did, just threw in there the in-house traffic, the traffic crew putting out their paving, or their striping. We used 1,700 gallons of paint throughout the city. And they come through and paint behind our crews, as well as the entire city, and the contract work that we did on Polston. We elected to do that in-house, save some money. We have all the equipment to do it. We didn't need to hire somebody to do that, so we did that ourselves. We are seeing that with the number of roads and some areas that are getting channelization striping, there's an increase. And we are probably going to have to order an extra tote of paint, of white and yellow. So we're going to see increased costs and materials for them in the coming years as we have to paint more roads. They also put out 200 new street signs or replacement street signs throughout the city, which is quite a few. And RFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We put out 3 new ones this year and replaced a knockdown that was up at the on-ramp to 90 off Celti's, right? That's correct. So I believe that's it.
Any questions?
Oh. This hasn't got anything to do with that, but I didn't want to have to make you come back up on council comments, but how's our sweepers doing?
Okay, so our new sweeper, it's a different model. So we actually have training on it. What day is today?
Tuesday.
Oh, the date, sorry. I should say. 7th. So the 9th, we have training. So they have to fly in and give us some actual training on it. We don't want to mess it up. So we actually haven't put that one into service yet. So as soon as that happens, it'll be out. The other one is still having issues. Check engine light comes on, we send it in. It's troubling. they're not certain exactly why it keeps coming on. They reprogram it, and then something else that had nothing to do with the first issue now is causing problems. So because it's under warranty still, every time a check engine light comes on, we're not going to mess with it. It's going to go right back to the dealer. So that's why it's.
Is there still a lemon law in place?
There is. Yeah.
There may come a point in time where you just say, give us a new one.
Yeah.
Steve?
This question might be a little bit different, but when we have issues with our sweepers, is there anything that prevents us from contracting with a private sweeping company for a month or two to fill those gaps?
Well, that would take putting together a contract, funding it. It might, we don't know exactly how long the sweeper will be out of commission as well. It could be 1 week, could be 3 weeks. So there's that. Do we do it? Do we wait till that sweeper comes back? If it's something we know that's going to be out of business, then we have to make that decision.
I don't know if all the other council members, but probably the biggest question I get is, when is our street going to be swept? And so
Comes up, I know.
it
it's a
comes up
big
a
issue.
lot. So it'd be nice if we kind of had a backup plan, alternative, or something that in the future say, hey, we might not need you, but in case of an emergency, could we contract with somebody to fill in those spots?
I have looked into rentals.
Yeah. or just
It
rent one.
is about $10,000 a month. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
So it's tough. We're hopeful with the new sweeper, getting it on board, that will be able to alleviate any issues that we have with either one of them.
Keep us posted on the old one, will you, please? Because if it continues, I think, I don't know what steps you can take, but I'd like to take some steps to get it replaced.
Sure. And it's not so with the sweeper, there's two components. There's the chassis, and then there's the sweeper mechanisms that are placed on the chassis. We haven't had any issues with that Timco chassis or the sweeper portion. It's the Peterbilt truck that we've had issues with. So it keeps going back to Peterbilt.
Great. Thank you, sir. Great. Carrie?
I had an observation.
Certainly.
It's just a guess that when you are up for rotation, when you're staff and you're up for rotation to come up here and give a report at a council meeting, it's like drawing the short straw. I really appreciate whenever staff comes up and gives these reports. It's nice to hear from the people that are literally and figuratively in the trenches doing the work. So, thank you.
I can pull them out of the trenches and bring them here too.
I know. Yes. Thank
Actually,
you.
that's something, if you don't mind. Snow and ice is coming up. In the past, I have opened it up to council members going for ride-alongs. If anybody is interested, please let me know.
It's been a few years since I've done it, but yeah, I'll be back. I think we're gonna get snow this year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Russ. Mayor and council comments. First of all, school's open. I actually saw a school bus today. Please drive safe. The littles don't necessarily believe in watching for cars when they cross. You talked about the rapid flashing beacons. There's one on Chase Road, 15th Street, and as I was heading out this morning, cars were stopped, kids were crossing, nobody pushed the button. And I've said that repeatedly. Please tell kids to push, and adults, anybody, push the buttons to help you get across the street. But kids being kids, and people being people, are not going to do it. So please drive defensively and watch out for them. I made mention earlier tonight the ceremonial groundbreaking for Elevate Academy. I think that's going to be a great addition. It's going to be the second one in the state. I think the third one's also in that construction process. Also, it was wonderful to attend and participate in the topping off ceremony at the Veterans Home. That's been a long time in coming. A lot of people put in a lot of work on that, and I appreciate everybody's efforts. And it's nice to see that finally coming to fruition and providing a resource for our veterans who are so deserving of it. So, for all those who've been involved in that, thank you very much. Council comments. Mr. Wolf.
I got a couple. I don't know, it's Dave's here, yeah. Have we made any progress on the dog park? Or what are we doing on the dog park?
So as far as the ITD property, Robbie has been in touch with them. ITD did inform us last week that they're going to be doing a study that will take 18 months to 2 years along the freeway corridor there, so they will not be considering that location for 2 years.
And this is for the freeway widening. So they're going to widen the freeway. and that's-
We continue to look at other properties. Had one resident this morning talking to me about a possible location. We're going to continue looking, but
Did we go back to one of the things we talked about during the discussion was the fact that Councilman Anthony discovered through his research that some of the people in the Singing Hills area were misinformed about what was actually going there. Have we gone back to find out and, like a new workshop or something like that and say, hey, this is what we're actually building. Are you really against this or not? I mean, I guess.
we have not done that. I guess what staff took from the council motion was that it would not be in Singing Hills Park. I know there was discussion about going back to them, but the actual motion was not to have it at Singing Hills Park. If the council wishes to redirect staff, we'll look at it.
And we did have follow-up from the gentleman that was kind of representing that group, and I know the mayor and I both, David reached out to us, and that was kind of our understanding, was we were not going to go back to that group, so.
Okay.
Dave took that direction from us, but.
On that topic, I know you have another question.
No, you go ahead.
On that same topic, I believe I was on holiday during that council meeting, the first one of August. Which ITD property?
One by Yokes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What about the ITD property? Because I brought this up years ago when I was on the Park and Rec Commission. That strip that goes along 6th Street, where the Chamber Building used to be and where the treehouse is now that the city has, it's parking all along that. So it wouldn't bother a neighborhood. You have freeway on the other side and very few houses on that. And that's a long strip of treed property. Just need to be fenced.
We could look at that, yes. We'd
I don't
have
know what I'm
to,
talking about.
That's a great idea.
we would have to get
Yeah,
ITD permission once again, because it'd be, right now, they've given us permission to landscape it. But we already have a house there that they've given us permission, actually, the city
Forever,
to buy.
yeah, 100 years or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always thought that would be ideal because it would not encroach on a neighborhood. It would not necessarily bring traffic in that would be a problem. And the reason I think of that is because they stage the parade there every year, and you see how many vehicles you can get on that one side of the street, but.
There is quite a bit of parking on there, so that'd be something you have to look at with the church, the school, the businesses. That could be an issue, but yeah, I'm not opposed to looking at it either.
We'll approach them. Once again, I don't know how much the widening will affect anything, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Al, do you
I
have
think you
another
guys
question?
might be talking about two, you're talking about 5th, which has the church and school.
Okay,
She's
and
talking
you're-
about 6th on the other
Across the
side.
freeway, where the little tree house is
Walgreens,
that
the
the
tree
city
house.
has.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
Arboretum.
I'm on the wrong side. Yes, thank
Come
you.
on the other side of the street and run your dog.
No barking.
My dog's happy. And he doesn't bark.
I had one other question. I thought we talked about this, but I wanted to double check since we approved the budget for this year. Have we talked about, and I see that Teresa's here, a salary assessment?
Yes, in fiscal year '22, we will be doing a full salary survey, comprehensive study.
Okay, so that could be approved for the next budget year?
It would, yeah, the effects would be approved for fiscal year '23.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be starting that study in October of this year, just because we want to have it ready in plenty of time for our new budget discussions for 2023.
Yeah, okay. I'm just very concerned about all the stuff I hear about how hard it is to get employees, and I know that we want to keep an eye on the budget, but at the same time, we don't want to run out of staff.
It's been a challenge.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Us and everyone
Thanks,
else.
Teresa.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I'm glad that Teresa had an opportunity to make a staff report there.
Appearance.
We do not need an executive session,
We do not.
so the next motion is?
Adjourn.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.